There's a parking lot in suburban Texas that tells you everything you need to know about American consumer debt. It's attached to a mid-range apartment complex. Monthly rent runs about $1,400. Nothing fancy, functional units with basic appliances and thin walls. The kind of place where young families start out and single professionals crash while saving for something better. And in that parking lot, right now, there are 11 pickup trucks worth over $60,000 each. Not old trucks that appreciated into collector status. Brand new machines with temporary tags still in the windows, gleaming paint, aftermarket wheels, the kind of vehicles that suggest their owners are doing extremely well financially. Except their owners are living in apartments that cost less per month than the truck payments. This is the paradox that's everywhere once you notice it. Registered nurses driving $80,000 SUVs. Public school teachers pulling up in trucks that cost more than they earn in a year. Retail managers whose vehicle payments exceed their rent. The math doesn't work, and yet it's happening millions of times over across the country. So what's actually going on here? How are ordinary people with ordinary incomes somehow affording vehicle payments that would have been considered financially suicidal just 15 years ago? The answer isn't what most people think. It's not higher wages, it's not smarter budgeting, and it's definitely not because these vehicles are worth the money. It's something far stranger, a fundamental rewiring of how Americans think about car ownership, enabled by a financing system that's built to trap people in permanent debt while convincing them they're making smart decisions. And understanding how this system works isn't just interesting, it's essential. Because if you don't know the mechanics, you're probably already caught in it. Let's start with the numbers that don't make sense. The average new vehicle transaction price in America is currently $68,000. Not the sticker price, the actual price people pay after negotiations, rebates, and dealer adjustments. $68,000 for an average vehicle. The median household income is roughly $75,000 before taxes, which means the typical American family earns about $52,000 after federal and state taxes are taken out. So we're in a situation where the average new vehicle costs more than the average household earns in an entire year after taxes. And yet, about 17 million new vehicles are sold annually in the United States. Traditional financial advice has always said your vehicle purchase should not exceed half your annual income. Under that guideline, a household earning $52,000 after taxes should be buying vehicles in the $25,000 to $30,000 range. But walk onto any dealership lot right now and try to find a new vehicle for $25,000. You'll find maybe 2 or 3 models, basic sedans that almost nobody wants. Everything else, the trucks and SUVs that dominate American sales, starts well above $40,000 and climbs rapidly from there. The market has moved, incomes haven't kept pace, and yet people are still buying. The mechanism that makes this possible is elegant in its simplicity and devastating in its long-term consequences. Let's talk about what changed. In the year 2000, the average car loan was 52 months, just over 4 years. The logic was straightforward. You borrowed money to buy a car, you paid it back as quickly as reasonably possible, and then you owned the car outright. The goal was to minimize the time you spent in debt. Today, the average new car loan is 67 months, 5.5 years. But that's just the average. Roughly 40% of new car loans now extend to 72 months or longer, 6 years minimum. And a growing percentage stretch to 84 months, 7 full years. Some lenders are offering 96-month terms, 8 years. There are people making car payments today for vehicles they'll still be paying for when the next presidential election after the one after the next happens. This isn't a subtle shift, it's a complete transformation of what car financing means. And it happened gradually enough that most people didn't notice they were being conditioned to accept terms their parents would have considered insane. Here's why it matters. When you extend a loan term, you're not just lowering the monthly payment, you're fundamentally changing the relationship between the buyer and the asset. Take a $60,000 truck. At 6% interest over 48 months, the payment is about $1,400 a month. Painful, but fast. Total interest paid is about $8,000. That same truck at 6% over 84 months drops to $850 monthly. Suddenly manageable. Except now the total interest is over $12,000. You're paying an extra $4,000 just for the privilege of spreading the pain across more years. But here's what really happens at the longer term. You're paying down the principal slower than the vehicle is depreciating. Let's pause and talk about depreciation, because this is where the trap is set. A new vehicle loses approximately 20% of its value the moment it becomes used. Not because anything is wrong with it, not because you damaged it, but because the designation changes from new to used, and buyers will pay a premium for that new designation. By year 3, the average vehicle has lost about half its original value, 50% gone. By year 5, roughly 60% is gone. By year 7, you're looking at a vehicle worth maybe 30% of what it sold for new. Now map that depreciation curve against an 84-month loan. For the first 3 years, you're underwater. You owe more than the vehicle is worth. This isn't unusual anymore. This is standard, expected, baked into the model. By year 4, if you've been making payments consistently and nothing has gone wrong, you might approach break-even. You might owe roughly what the vehicle is worth on the private market. By year 5, you're finally building a little equity. The loan balance is dropping below the vehicle's value. But here's the problem. Most people don't keep vehicles for 7 years anymore. The average ownership period is about 6 years, which means most people are trading out of their vehicles before they've paid them off. And when you trade in a vehicle you still owe money on, that remaining balance doesn't just disappear. This is where the system becomes self-reinforcing. You buy a $55,000 truck with a 72-month loan. 3.5 years later, you've made your payments faithfully, you've been responsible. You owe about $31,000. But the truck is now worth $24,000 in trade-in. You're $7,000 underwater, negative equity. You can't sell the truck without writing a check to cover the difference, and most people don't have $7,000 in cash available to make a car problem go away. So what does the dealership offer? They'll take your truck, they'll pay off your loan, and they'll roll that $7,000 deficit into your next loan. This sounds like a solution. It feels accommodating. You get out of the old truck and into something new without having to come up with cash. The dealer is helping you. Except now you're not financing $60,000 for the new truck. You're financing $67,000. Your loan balance just jumped by $7,000 before you even drove the new vehicle off the lot. And because that new loan amount is higher, the only way to keep the monthly payments similar to what you were paying before is to extend the term even longer. So the 72-month loan becomes an 84-month loan. The debt grows, the timeline extends, and the cycle begins again.